Welcome back to Star Citizen Addicts Anonymous. I'm Nikki Batgirl D'Angelo, your host, and I'm bringing you back to December 11th, 2017, when we were asked this question. Let's start off with this question. It's not even pertinent who won, because every one of these ships is now being made for the game, and 2 of them will be in the next version of Star Citizen, which will be 3.18. In fact, we're most likely, if not definitely, going to see the Corsair in mid-November in 3.17.4 because they said we would, but I don't hold my breath for too long when they make promises because sometimes they just don't come to fruition. We now jump to March of 2019, where on Around the Verse, the Corsair is revealed. And it is a doozy, showing off great concept art and even what looks like some white box images of the ship that we are soon to get. There was a lot of fanfare with David Haddock up here talking about much of the lore behind Star Citizen at the time. But what we got to see was the ship that we've been waiting for so long. That Drake competitor to something in the class of the Constellation. The images we were provided with showed off that utilitarian and rustic, rugged, and even dangerous design. This is no ordinary exploration ship design. This is a ship designed to find things and take them over. Drake has always been known as supplying the more nefarious groups with ships. The marketing behind this one is different. It doesn't talk about piracy, but it talks about the lure of exploration. Drake trying to change their image, and that's why this ship was revealed. But even with a change in marketing, there's no doubt that this ship was built with the more nefarious groups in mind. With room for a Lynx-size rover, ample cargo, and firepower to match. It almost seems like this ship is unmatched by the Constellation Aquila and the Origin 600i, which is currently undergoing a rework. The day after the introduction of the ship, on Reverse to Verse, the developers sat down and gave their vision of the ship. They spoke of its rustic roots, its more utilitarian design, but specifically they gave a little bit of insight in where the direction of this ship was going. They talked about the octagonal design of the engineering room. They talked about the cargo capacity of the ship, but even though they went into detail, we were still left wanting more. And so within a week, those that are subscribers were granted access to Jump Point. And in Jump Point, they detailed the building out of this concept. But that wasn't enough. We still needed more. It wasn't just about the designs that weren't and the design that was. It was about what the design that is can do. So to answer those questions, on April 4th, 2019, CIG released the Drake Corsair Q&A. And so now I'll read to you some of the questions. Can you please clarify your stance on Drake ship durability? We want tough and versatile no-frills ships, not paper ships that will fall apart when you look at them, as some devs have stated. Which is it? The response was, when we say paper ships, we say it in regards to our entire lineup, where Aegis and Anvil typically have more armor and can be regarded as very tough. In comparison, Drake ships are relatively under-armored, which we exaggerate as paper thin. While they may be less durable, their defense is more than enough for the intended role they're pitched at, and they're often upgunned to offset any deficit. And then we had questions about the amenities of the ships. With Drake's stance on the bare bones necessities, how will the living quarters actually be in comparison with other ships? While not as luxurious as other companies' living quarters, Drake still provides all the necessities such as a bed, kitchen, washroom, and storage for every crew person's weapon and clothing. Other ships may give each crew member their own facilities, but Drake feels this is a waste of space and resources that could be better used elsewhere. Other questions had to do with how the pilot would interact with some of the weapon systems. Does the pilot control 4X S5 or S4 gimbaled front and 2X S4 or S3 gimbaled right wing guns? The pilot controls these weapons by default, although in the future, like on other ships, their control will be able to be delegated to another station. And finally, we received clarity on the pilot-co-pilot seating arrangement. With this special co-pilot and pilot seating arrangement, will both seats provide the option to fly the ship? Both seats have full control inputs available, so this is possible. There were many other questions, some of them moot, and just like all other Q&As, there were a lot of toss-up questions. And here's an example of one of them. How many people can use the forward lift at a time? The front lift can take the entire crew, so 4 at a time. Folks, let me tell you, some of those lifts you could fit 10 or 15 people on because we've done that. So, CIG proves that they do want us to learn more about the ships in these Q&As, but not all the questions that they choose to publish are ones that actually give us the bare bones, meat and potatoes of what the ships do. After the Q&A of April 4th, 2019, information about the Corsair becomes spotty at best, sometimes appearing on the roadmap, sometimes not. But it isn't until May 5th of 2021, yes, 2 years later, that we hear more about the Corsair. Something that makes every Drake ship lover perk up and start to focus on ship development. Drake Corsair, building, balancing, and implementing Drake Interplanetary's multi-crew explorer, the Corsair, into the game. And with this, the Drake aficionados jumped up in joy and began waiting in apprehension for the introduction of their ship, the Drake Corsair Explorer. And that leads us to here, October of 2022, 5 years after the first purchases of the Corsair were made. It's almost like you buying a Tesla, isn't it? Anyway, we're about ready to see the introduction of this ship at IAE in mid-November of 2022. The development may have taken a long time, but this seems to be one of those ships that CIG nailed the development of, even taking the time to include such amenities as a fan in the cockpit that hasn't been seen since the original Drake Cutlass. My love of Star Citizen ships is very eclectic at best. Whether it's a Freelancer or a Hornet, whether it's a Raven or a Cutlass, whether it's the Redeemer or, dare I say, the Nomad, or even something as boxy and non-lovable as the Raft. I seem to find love in every ship that I buy. But this one is one that I had to have. Upgrading my Hurricane to a Corsair was absolutely no-brainer, especially since the Hurricane could be repurchased for just about $1.8 million in UEC. I am looking forward to this ship, and I will give a full review when it comes out. I thought I should talk about the design process and how long it took to get here. You'll hear a lot of theory crafting from people, but I don't like to do that until it's in my hands. But this is most likely going to be a ship that I call my home for some time. And while I do love the beautiful design and the outside lines of the Phoenix, I'll wait for an interior redesign. While I do like the sleek and very organic look of the 600i, I'll wait for a rework of the inside. This seems to be one of those ships that was well thought out and designed inside and out to be perfect from the start. At least we hope it will be. I'm sure we'll get it in our hands and find some things that don't work out. Like another one of my loves, the MSR, one entry, a mile away from the cockpit. We won't talk about that. But CIG, I think, is looking at the Drake customer, the Drake lover, as the ones that it wants to get right the first time. And go figure, why would you ever want to mess with a Cutlass owner? With all the weapons and missiles that they have to bear, If they get pissed off, you're going to have a lot to pay for. I am looking forward to this design. And the minute it's out, you'll get a full review as soon as I put it through its paces and see what fits inside. Anyway, I wanted you to see the pipeline, how long it took for this ship to come to fruition. And I think I'm going to end it here because to go any further would be speculative. Without it in my hands, all I could talk about was, ooh la la, wow, look at those guns firing. That's got to be a great ship, right? Well, I hope it will be. If you like this video, please click the thumbs up button below. And if you are a subscriber or have subscribed or are subscribing, make sure you click that bell-shaped icon so you get notified of all my future videos. In closing, I'd like to say, due to my own failure to bring you content every week in the past, I've been demonetized. I'm okay with that because we pay the consequences of our own actions. But I am back and I'm back to stay. And what I hope you'll do for me is share this video, share it with your org mates, share it with your friends, share it with your family so I can get back to monetization, so I can get more of these videos out for you and get back to the original content that I used to bring you on a weekly basis. And with that said, you all be safe out there, and I will talk to you soon.